Let's have a conversation about the documentary Unknown Number. Spoiler alert. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling men and women who have been victims and or perpetrators of abuse for many years. I have a commenter here. This is, can you talk about the documentary on Netflix, Unknown Number? Would love to hear what you think about the mother's behavior. And again, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about, the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, bookmark this and come back when you have. So for me, this movie was interesting, and it's something, unfortunately, that I have seen quite a bit over the span of my career. So I'd say that to say that I figured it out pretty quickly who was the culprit, although I was kind of perplexed because she was out of custody. So I was like, it kind of strikes me as the mother is the one who's sort of harassing her daughter, because for me, I knew, I would say the first thing I knew right away is that I knew it was a single mother. I knew it wasn't a child, because whoever was sending the girl, the daughter, and I forget her name, all the messages, had way too much free time on her hands. So I said, oh, this is a stay-at-home mother for sure. And then, it went further into it, and how it was triggered by the dating of the young man in the movie. And not only that, but it extended to harassing all of the women who this young man was dating, or had interactions or friendships with. So to me, it stuck out as one, stalkerish behavior, but two, pedophilic behavior, but three, it started with the hatred that the mother had for her daughter, and her daughter having being able to date, having a boy that is attracted to her and finds her beautiful and that is treating her well. Those were to me, that was the trigger for that behavior, for her to sort of begin to spiral like that towards her daughter. But the one thing that I will say is that, one, she's a pedophile. That's my personal thinking. That is very pedophilic behavior. And this is the stuff that I've talked to you all about every day on here, or, quite frequently here on this app, and which is why I talk to you guys, to spread awareness that she's perseverating, she's focused in on this young man, that it's totally inappropriate. But two, I think the other thing that didn't come out, but I strongly feel about the mother's behavior, who is behind all of this, is that I strongly feel that this wasn't her first rodeo. And so I think if there's more digging, into her past, I would not be surprised if more stuff came up to where, as she was harassing people, again, she seemed very calm, cool, and nonchalant. Even when she confessed, it was like it was no big deal. So to me, when I see that in any type of perpetrator or any type of offender, I know that this is not their first rodeo. When people say certain things, I know just from my own experience, like, oh, they've done this before, or there's somebody else in their past from before. She was also, one of the things that I noticed too, that she was also very nonchalant, just sort of like cavalier about, not working and things like that. So for me, again, this is not her first rodeo in terms of living a double, triple, or quadruple life. Like, I have a feeling that her daughter and her dad did not know who this woman was, and that she was very comfortable, lying, almost like she was breathing air. And to me, that's a very, very dangerous person. What was I going to say? It would be interesting to see, to know what happened at her jobs and why she got fired or what have you. Because a part of me is wondering, was some stuff going on there, because a lot of times stalkers just don't stalk just one person. Sure, they can get caught up in the moment, but usually there's a pattern of behavior. So part of me is wondering, was there some sort of dangerous behavior, you know, at prior employers? And, you know, it's just very, just like, very sinister human being. The other thing, never, you know, one of the things that struck out, and this is what offenders will do, these are people that are very cold and very calculating. And again, usually they have some history, prior history of doing this, is when she was kind of getting caught up with the other family and like with her daughter, and, you know, helping them sort of look for the perpetrator and things like that. So she's, you know, she's, you know, never trust anybody that will help you look for something that they're doing or that they took from you. That person is especially sinister. And even, you know, even at the end, I don't think she was telling all of the truth. You know, she said she wasn't the one to initiate the messages. And again, I have no affiliation with this case or anything like that. But I don't think, you know, she's so used to lying. It is hard for her to tell the truth. You know, even when she's telling the truth, she's only going to give you bits and pieces and fragments of it. And this is what I have seen when I've worked with offenders. Like, they never want anybody to know too much information. Even when they've been caught red-handed, they'll still try to deflect and put off something. And again, that alludes to me that there's something more to hide and something more sinister in her thinking, because they've caught her for this certain thing. But, you know, the other question I have is, what haven't they caught her for? Right? And so that's the other thing, because she still has a reason to lie. So a person that still has a reason to lie is still trying to keep their distance for a certain reason. So again, that lets me know that there's a level of danger. They probably have only scratched the surface with this woman. That's my thinking. But, you know, so there is that. And anyone who's willing to, you know, let your assets be seized, because their house and their possessions, all of that had, you know, gotten seized, and she continued to lie and say she was paying the bills. Again, makes me wonder, what is she paying for? What is she doing with the money? And again, just how comfortable she is with lying and putting her family in a state of duress and essentially homelessness. And so that lets you know that she does not care about anyone's welfare or well-being, you know, even her own child, right? The one that she's sort of calling on the phone and telling her, I love you and I want to see you, blah, blah, blah. But you were letting me get put out. You were telling me to essentially go commit suicide. And, you know, I hope that young girl, you know, separates herself from her before she's too late. And again, I don't know anybody personally affiliated, but, you know, this woman doesn't see anything wrong with what she was doing. It was a simple mistake. And that means that she most likely is not going to be rehabilitatable. From my perspective, as somebody who's worked in rehabilitation for quite some time. So yeah, to me, it's just a matter of time now that she's out before another offense is committed, but if one hasn't been done already. Thanks so much for watching.